You may be asking yourself why you consistently get ignored in meetings. And if that's you, then this video is for you. Because you have spent years in your area, you know that the gap between what you know and how you're heard is not down to the content. You know that that's good stuff. But yet, the reaction that you get when you share it indicates that there's something missing. So, I'm going to share with you three traps that technical professionals often fall into, and those are keeping you stuck. So, by the end of this video, you will know what's holding you back in order to communicate differently. What's happening currently? You get asked about your area of expertise, and because you love going into all of the details, everything, very soon you realize people have switched off. Now, it's important here to make the distinction between what worked when you were studying about your field and needed to show your understanding and your expertise to your, let's say, your professor or your lecturer versus now, which is a very different situation. So, trap number one is giving an explanation that's way longer than it needs to be. So, too long. And a lot of professionals feel I need to justify why I'm here. And therefore, let me justify it with more and more and more words. Whilst that sounds logical in theory, in practice, it actually just makes people tune out because unnecessarily long just means that people get tired more quickly. Attention is finite. So when we make an answer longer than it needs to be, the audience just associates you with being more boring and being more taxing on the brain. And that's not a reputation you want to have. And in fact, the opposite is true. It actually takes far more rigor to be succinct than it does to be long because when you know you can go on for 2 hours, you don't need to be structured. You don't need to articulate things in a certain fashion. You don't need to do any of that work up front. If you have something that you could have said in an hour, but you chose to condense it and say the essential in 10, 15 minutes, everyone is going to thank you for it because it gives them their time back and they get all of that information condensed just to what they need to know. People who are able to explain what they want to say succinctly, precisely, sharply are going to be far better received. And it reminds me of this Mark Twain quote. He says, I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long one instead. The idea being it takes more effort to condense to be more concise than it is to ramble on until the cows come home. Long explanations do not mean deep thinking. They actually can reveal not taking the time to condense it. And in the end, it can just feel like you're there thinking out loud. So the first myth to break is if it's longer, it is better. Shorten it and show people that actually this doesn't need to take a whole hour. It can be said in 10 minutes. Everyone will thank you for it. Number two is too detailed or too complex. Now, whereas going too long was about, will I show that I've earned my place if I don't go on and on and on? Having too much complexity is, will I show that I am intelligent enough if I don't make it complex, if it doesn't sound like only someone who's super hyper intelligent will get it? And that's another trap because the reality is the aims of your company are not that you be intelligent, just that you be effective. And in the context of a meeting, effective is not sounding intelligent and losing your audience. Effective is getting the message across in a way that the people in front of you understand. And so if you leave a meeting and no one has understood what you said, that is everything but effective. And so lose the complexity, lose all the details, and give that which is easy to understand. It's not a question of dumbing it down, it's a question of making it clear. Those are quite different. The people who are in front of you are intelligent, they just don't have your expertise. So your job is not just to have the expertise, it is to be able to translate that expertise into something that is clear for someone who is outside of your field. That is the jump that most technical professionals are often not making. And this quickly comes in whenever you start using jargon and acronyms that you think other people understand but actually don't. And that is the surest way for the audience's auditory brain to think, oh, this is not for me. I don't need to actually listen to this. And inadvertently, you have completely lost them just because of not regulating the right level of complexity. And let me say this, you can rest assured, pretty much, that whatever you say, no professional is going to come back to you with your decades of experience in your technical field saying, you know, I think you made it a little bit too easy for us to understand. Provided you give the value that your expertise is supposed to bring, but you just do it in a simpler manner, no one is going to say at the end that it was just too simple because the value is still there. That hasn't changed. In fact, you've just found a quicker way of delivering it to them, which uses less of their cognitive energy. Who would say no to that? No one is the answer. So number one is too long. Number two, too complex, which makes their auditory brain think, oh, this is not for me. And the last, which I believe is the most lethal of them all, is not making it relevant. Let's say you make it extremely complex, but at every point, the audience is thinking, oh, this is specifically targeted at me. They will still be able to give you some level of attention. But this third point here of speaking like it's not intended for your audience or giving a generic presentation and adapting nothing to them. Well, I mean, when I say it like that, is it any surprise that they would tune out? No. And so, in line with that, there are three questions you can ask yourself. So, in terms of it being too long, how can I make this more concise? I love what Professor Simon Clues says. He says, when you're writing or you're thinking about your talk, speak with the heart. If you have loads of detail that you want to include in there, go ahead and do that. But when you are editing, edit with the brain. The brain can be ruthless and it doesn't have to be emotional about what needs to get cut. So include everything you want to include in there, but then go back with your analytical mind and cut, 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 cut in order for the content that's left to be razor sharp and hit the mark that it needs to hit without adding all of the superfluous detail. That's number one. Number two, for the question of, is this too complex? Is to ask yourself, what is my aim? And do the words I'm using help me get there? What is my aim? And do the words I'm using help me get there? If you need to educate the people in front of you about certain terminologies, about a certain set of words or jargon, in order for you to accomplish the purpose that you have been brought into the meeting, then by all means do that. Right? If that is not the case and you find yourself using certain words just because you like them and they sound cool, then you can be sure that you can cut them out because they do not serve the purpose of the audience actually understanding the content. If anything, they take away from it. You don't want to be the person in the room who looks smart, but that no one listens to. And if you go too complex, that's the risk you run. Number three, for relevance, you can ask the question, what is my audience here for? And how does this cater to that? If you use these three questions, you will see a shift between where you are now and how your audience will respond to you once you start implementing those changes. The deeper shift is really that you stop thinking to yourself, I need to prove how much I know. Put that way out of the picture and instead replace it with, I need to make what I know really easy to grasp for the person in front of me. The technical professionals who make this shift are immediately more engaging because they can simply cater to the needs of the people in front of them and get out of their own heads about what they know and how they can prove what they know. The irony is you actually come off as even more knowledgeable when you are able to make what you know accessible to the people in front of you. Now you know exactly why you've been ignored in meetings because it's either too long, it's too complex, or it's not relevant to your audience. But now you have the three questions that you can ask instead in order to be that person that people call back to because they know this is going to be short, sharp, sweet, to the point. We're going to get it and we're going to implement all of these amazing things that you have to bring to the table. Let me know how you get on. I'll see you next time.